This is the video lecture for 199 through 211, Washington's America. Starts out with a discussion of the different regions of the United States. We've now broke it down into three different regions: the New England, the Mid-Atlantic, and the South. New England is their political values and harsh environment keeps them the most religiously and ethnically uniform region in the United States. These New Englanders are descendants of the Puritans, and so they follow this English Congregational Anglican faith, and things are a lot different than all the other regions of the United States. Slavery has been marginal, meaning there's not really a need for any due to sustenance farming. Women outnumber men. But they remain in a dependent state. Puritans' past political and social life influence what's going on in New England, as I said earlier. Pie chart shows all the different regions where majority of their people come from, and you can see 80% of New Englanders are from England. New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania are the most ethnically and religiously diverse states in the nation. This is your Mid-Atlantic region. Diversity arose in part because of the Dutch first owning New York and New Jersey, and Pennsylvania being owned by a Quaker, William Penn, who allowed for religious and ethnic diversity. It just has more opportunities for people. People are going to flock to the Mid-Atlantic states because no matter what they want to do, they can do it. They can take it to their advantage. Especially farming. This is the nation's first breadbasket. Meaning wheat is their number one commodity. Slavery is never a major system in place, and the religion's diversity created a complex political environment as well. The South, climate and soil conditions favored production of staple crops like tobacco and indigo and rice. 40% of Southerners are slaves. Economic conditions span the spectrum. We have backcountry poor people to the plantation owners who have lots of money. The plantation owners are known as Tidewater planters, are largely English descent and Anglican, whereas the Piedmont farmers or the backcountry people are Scots-Irish, Presbyterian, Baptist, things of that nature, the ones that don't have a lot of money. The most rapid growing region, though, was the West. Specifically the area between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi. Native Americans try to block this, but it's to no use. Kentucky and Tennessee are going to be populated very quickly, mostly by white young migrants, or rural poor from the slave states that don't have any money, and we might as well go west. Life in the West was harsh and isolated. Westerners desired the freedom to control their own affairs, and their allegiance is strained from that of the United States. The United States isn't doing a whole lot to protect them. The United States is not doing a whole lot to take care of them, so why would they have their allegiance to the United States? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. All right, forging a new government. What Washington decides to do with the etiquette of the presidency changes our government forever, our traditions forever. He doesn't want a monarchical title. He doesn't want to be called king or anything like that, so he chooses Mr. President. He also lays down strict rules of etiquette to increase respect for the office of the president. Everybody standing up when he walks in the room, announcing when he walks in the room, no shaking hands, kind of being more or being above that of the common folk. As Washington had promised, the Bill of Rights is quickly passed and ratified by the states, and it broadened the popular support of the new government. The Bill of Rights are key, first 10 amendments of the Constitution. Constitution authorized the first executive departments, otherwise known as the cabinet, the ones that are closely bound to the president. There are 4 at this point: Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of War Henry Knox, and the Attorney General Edmund Randolph. The Judiciary Act of 1789 set up the national court system, which is the 13 circuit courts, one for each state, as well as the Supreme Court, and how the Supreme Court was chosen, decided on, what steps had to go into place by the common people in order to have their grievance heard by the Supreme Court. Revenue was the government's most pressing need, so we came up with the Tariff Act of 1789 to raise revenue and protect some industries considered vital to the nation's health. And you should know the 4 things that we consider vital to the nation's economic health, and how much the revenue tax certain things. It's 5% for everything and 50% for the 4 things that we consider vital to our nation's economic health. Therefore, nobody buys that stuff outside of the United States. They buy it inside the United States. The 4 are listed in your book, pretty easy for you to find. The Tonnage Act of 1789 treated all foreign ships equally. They don't give special service to anybody. This is crucial because most of our stuff's going to England, so England could ask for better trading rights, but we don't give it to them. We treat all foreign ships equally. Treasury was the largest and most important department. Alexander Hamilton proposed addressing, I'm going to read this and then explain. Alexander Hamilton proposed addressing the debt issue by having the federal government fund the national debt at full face value by exchanging it for government bonds. He also proposed the federal government assume the remaining war debts of the states. Okay, so if Hamilton is going to pay off the debt the federal debt at full face value by selling bonds, who's going to buy the bonds? The wealthy. So this ties the wealthy to the federal government and making sure that the federal government succeeds. He also will have the federal government pay for the war debts of the remaining states, thus tying the states to the United States. Which, if you think about it, is a pretty awesome idea, because now the wealthy, the most influential people, don't want the federal government to fail. Neither do the states, because the states now are indebted to the federal government. Hamilton proposed an excise tax on whiskey distilled in the United States to raise revenue, 25%. Okay, remember I told you the drink of America was whiskey, and they charged 25% tax on it. He also called for the chartering of the national bank in order to hold all the money, as well as diversifying the national economy to promote manufacturing. Why are we not making things in the United States? The Industrial Revolution has started in England, and it never leaves. They keep close ties on it, but we aren't really doing a whole lot to get in there and start our own factories and industrialize certain things. Okay, so promoting manufacturing is essential. Opposition to Hamilton's debt proposal reflected sectional differences. The southern states, except for South Carolina, had paid most of their debt off. And if you've paid most of your debt off, why would you want the federal government? Why would you want to be indebted to the federal government? Hey, we got this. We'll pay it off. We'll take care of it. But in order for anything to pass, unless it's an amendment, you only need a simple majority. So they get a simple majority, and therefore it passes. Opinion on the bank bill also follows sectional lines and opened the issue of strict versus broad construction of the Constitution. We'll get back to that in just a minute, but Washington supports Hamilton's banking bill, so it passes. The Congress does pass a large excise tax on, and tariff duties are raised, but no funds are made available to accelerate industrial development or production. So that becomes a key issue. Because if there's no money to build it, why build it? We'll just keep doing the system the way it is. That's what people think. Now, going back to broad versus strict construction of the Constitution. Broad meaning we lay down precedents, Precedents, precedents for situations that happen, and that means the Constitution is a living document. It's always funding, it's always moving, it's always changing, because there's nothing in the Constitution talking about cell phones or electricity or the internet or anything like that. So if we were using a strict version of the construction of the Constitution, we'd have 500 million amendments to the Constitution, because we'd have to amend the Constitution every time we did something, which is not what our founding fathers, as Congress believes, and as a lot of people believe, had in mind when they came up with the Constitution. It's more of a guideline and a rule book rather than something set in stone. All right, we're going to get really into these parties later, but by the end of Washington's first term, we have two camps. We have the Federalists and we have the Democratic Republicans. And then there's a few things that happen, including the French Revolution, that broaden and deepen the party's divisions. Okay, these two definitions that are listed on this page and on the next page of the PowerPoint are not correct. Okay, you have the Federalist Party, which is the party of Hamilton, who are the wealthy and more affluent people in society. And then you have the Democratic Republicans, who are the farmers, and they are led by Jefferson. So those are the two distinctions of the parties, and we'll really get more involved in them. But starting a T-chart on them now would be probably a good idea. Again, as I said, this is not correct. We are not talking about the 1850s at this point. And there's the French Revolution, which we'll pick up next time. That's the lecture for 199 through 211.